Hey, good morning, Chris. Long time no see. I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. So, as you know, we're doing the Born or Made podcast. Thank you for coming on. We're really excited to have you. I was telling the guys in our pre meeting on this thing. It's funny. I said, I know Chris, and yet I don't even know Chris. So I get this really great bio. I read about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, me and this guy have so much in common. So first thing I like to tell everybody is, where are you at today?
Where am I at physically? Where am
Physically,
I at in my journey?
physically.
I'm in Madison, Wisconsin.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's where our operations are. So
It,
South Central Wisconsin.
okay. And then tell me a little bit. So I kind of want to know uh, when you were born till you were a senior in high school. Tell me kind of where you grew
Sure.
up, what you did, what you didn't do, just
Yeah.
everything.
Born in Pasadena, California,
Oh,
and grew up in Southern California until I was 10 years old, and my parents drugged me kicking and screaming to Wisconsin. So um, spent my youth in Stoughton, Wisconsin, just regular kid. Didn't do well. A big part of my story is I did not do well in school. I didn't do well at. I got bad grades. Didn't study. Didn't spend any time on any of it, and so yeah, spent my childhood split between California and Wisconsin, two pretty different worlds.
so you were there. So you say split, were you, because you still had family, so you go out there and visit?
Just childhood in
Oh,
California
okay.
and youth in Wisconsin. We went back and forth a little bit, visit family in each state, but yeah, quite a dividing line there.
So were you good in school when you were in California and they just kind of uprooted you when you went to Wisconsin, or were you pretty much
No,
just,
I just never did well in traditional learning environments. I get 1.5 GPA, and the thing for me when I got out of high school, I started framing, and I was really, really good at it, and I could learn it really fast. And so by the time I was 20 years old, I had a contract to frame 26 houses, and I had 3 employees. You know, it was just something about physically being there, being able to see the things I was doing, and the way that the comprehension worked for me. It was all there.
so yeah, you're the classic visual learner.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funny. They don't, they talk about that more. They try to put guys like us in boxes. I was similar to you, probably. We don't
Yeah.
talk about me much, but I mean, I was same. I didn't do well in school, but I did. I was always able to learn when I was physically doing things. You showed me how to do it. I could do it. Tried to show me on a
Yeah.
piece of paper. I was like, well, this doesn't make sense to me. I mean, just, same
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're 20 years old. You're going to frame 20, you said 20 houses?
26 houses.
Yeah. So are
Yep.
you
Two every week for 1 year.
stick framing these? Are you
Stick
field
frame.
framing these? I mean,
No,
or
that was
trussing
stick
them?
framing back then.
Okay. So you're radial arm saw, chop saws.
Yeah, chop saws out on site, getting dirty 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Just this young kid with all the energy in the world.
Okay. So you do that. And how'd it
Yeah.
go with the first 26?
It didn't go well. I didn't know anything about running guys. I didn't know anything about cash flow management. I didn't know anything about business, but it was definitely trial by fire. You know, during that time, similar now, if you were in the trades and you were reliable and you were willing to do the work, people give you work. But it definitely wasn't smooth. I had to learn a lot on the fly. And the way that contractors or small guys like me at the time learned, made a lot of mistakes and tried to learn from those mistakes.
Did you make money on those first 26 houses?
I made money for a 20-year-old single guy.
Okay.
I was happy. I had a nice brand new couch and a big TV and a 1 bedroom apartment and all the stuff that a guy that age would ever care to want. So I wasn't growing a business. I wasn't stocking money away, but I was having fun. I was getting a tan, and I got to do what I want when I wanted. So Yeah.
So you get through the 26. So then where do you go? I mean, you're 20 years old, so you're young. I mean,
Yeah.
you have, like I said, you're
Yeah.
just happy. So how do you
Yeah.
progress to get to where you are today, obviously? So take me down that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So a friend of mine says to me, that was around 2001, and he said, he calls me up and he's a framer also. And he said, uh, you come work with me. Come be my production manager, and I'm gonna add a bunch of framing crews, and you're gonna drive around and check on them, and you won't have to wear a tool belt, and we're gonna grow this thing, right? And so I do. I jump in with him, and we scale from 3 framing crews on single family to 10 single family crews plus a multifamily crew over the course of 5 or 6 years. Um, went really, I mean, a lot of growth, cycled through a lot of guys, a lot of churn, but I learned how to manage. Then the downturn happens, right?
Hmm.
And and I decide I'm going to join a sub crew. So it's me and 2 other guys swinging a hammer, subcontracting, doing single family custom homes.
So are
Just
you
getting by,
framing the
getting a
house, or are
check.
you just doing like a part of the, are you just doing a segment of the house?
Just the framing,
Just
just the
the, but
framing.
you're not just doing, in some of the, like your multifamily, you have guys that are sub crews only do like the OSB. You were actually
Yeah.
still framing. You were just working under somebody else umbrella.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Go ahead.
That's correct. Um, Decided to start 2013, started Dynamic Construction as a labor only framing contractor for multifamily buildings.
So you went from single family to multifamily?
Yeah, yeah, and I had managed and supervised multifamily as I was scaling the previous company,
But
and so
not
I knew
during
enough.
that 6 or 7 years. Cause that's better than
Yeah,
single family, multifamily. That's a big leap.
it is.
Yeah. That's not just going down and go, oh yeah, we'll start framing a little bit. That's a big deal. Big contracts, big everything. Numbers get big.
It is. It is. But I had always been the point man for all the multifamily projects we had done. Oftentimes I was wearing a tool belt at the other company and leading and crew leading those guys. And so I had experience in it. I had confidence in it. So for me, it was pretty easy to decide to kind of get into that again. Um, so 2013 and through 17, 18, I'm a labor only framing contractor, and I think I'm at the pinnacle of my success, right? I get a 60,000 square foot building contract for whatever, couple $100,000, and run my crews, wear my tool belt, and keep the money that's left over at the end of it, right? And in Wisconsin, that's the business model. It's labor only framing contractor, materials through a lumber yard direct to a general contractor, and the component manufacturer is selling to the lumber yard. Um, Got involved with the National Framers Council in 2014. Met some of the guys 𝗕cie𝗿𝘁𝘁, Scott Stevens, um, turnkey framing contractors from the Mid Atlantic and Texas, and I figured out these guys were real business professionals,
And
and the
big
difference was
operations.
was
Like these are big operations.
they're big operations.
Yeah.
I'm framing 250,000 square feet a year, and these guys are framing 5 million square feet a year.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
and they're not only doing that, they're selling material along with their labor. And during that time, lumber was 150% of labor. And so, I mean, their contracts are more than double the contracts I'm getting. Um, so 2017, I decide I need to figure this out. I need to start selling my lumber along with the labor. The other part is they're controlling their schedule better because they're controlling the material. So took me a while to find my way into the supply chain, found a component manufacturer who was willing to take a risk and sell direct to me, to the much to the ire of the local lumber yards. Um, Sold my first package in 2019. Um, Since then, we've grown 1,126%. We were named 539th fastest growing company in America by Inc. magazine last year.
In
So
America?
we're the largest framing contractor in Wisconsin. We're the fastest growing building materials supplier in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't. So that's so. How come we don't know more about that? I mean, I don't read all these magazines. Like, no offense, but like that's a freaking big deal.
It is.
Like, no, that's like legit.
Yeah. We're very proud of it. It's like we found a glitch in the matrix that nobody was doing turnkey in Wisconsin, and so none of the general contractors sort of enjoying the benefits that a turnkey package can bring, right? As far as the value engineering opportunities, having a framer to the table early to, when it's a 5-page budget print, I can influence all those things so that plan's drawn well, everything's optimized. So we're not taking a 200-page plan and trying to change it at the last minute to pick up $20,000.
Wow. So it's funny. You're like, well, I think I like 𝗕cie𝗿𝘁𝘁, and you say it so, nonchalant. I mean, those guys were building in like 10 states. I mean, it wasn't like they were just like, when I was on a plane with Kenny one day, I'm like, oh yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, we're doing turnkey in Arizona. And I'm like, we're getting on a plane in Virginia. And he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Like, because I grew up in Texas. So George Hull was the king, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
Maybe in the United States, right? At some point.
People have for George is still there, right?
Yeah, I mean, and to think that you were just like, oh yeah, I'm framing a few houses, I'm gonna do some multi. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm a turnkey frame, and I'm gonna do like, these guys are literally doing 5 million square feet. Like when you said you were doing 250, I'm like, that's a lot, but I'm like, I bet those guys are doing double that, and you're like, no, they're doing 5 million.
Yeah. Which, by the way, George spent about 6 hours of his day with me back in 2014, 15, which I'm still totally grateful for when I came down.
Because he's a good guy, man. He knows he's got to give back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was a good guy. When I knew him, I've only met him a couple times. He would know me if I walked in the room. Like 25 years ago, and I remember this guy, and he was like the man. And you were like, well, he's a really nice guy. And all of his guys loved working for him.
Yeah, and they still do. I mean, they've got well-deserved pride about working at Hull and Associates. Absolutely.
So going back, you're going to go from I'm building 20 houses, 26. You go to work for this guy. You're building through 13. You decide you're going to get into multifamily. So hindsight, let's just say from 2000 to 2013. What do you think your biggest mistake was right there? Just those 13 years, not the big time now, just 13.
Man, as a young man, I mentioned earlier I didn't do well in school.
Yeah,
and I didn't think I was a smart person. I didn't think I was sharp at all. And that very much limited me, and it limited the vision that I could have for my future, and hindered, what I could see as far as the possibilities for my business. So, and that's, I spent a lot of time giving back to the framing industry, and that's because framing gave me the confidence that I have now to succeed. And absolutely in a very real way. So that lack of confidence and the ability to step away from what I happen to be doing that day to envision a future for myself. And I spent the first 20 years of my career until I met these professional framing contractors with sort of these blinders on the sides of my eyes, tunnel vision. I didn't see what people outside of my market were doing. And so I'm here, and I've been going hard growing my business now for 5 or 6 years. Man, it would have been nice to have started that 25 years ago, right?
Yeah. There was a guy I talked to the other day, and And he talked about, don't look at it as in, I wished I should have. You should be like, I'm glad I started when I, like if you started 10 years ago, say, I'm so glad I started 10 years ago. Instead, we all go, I wished I would have started 20 years ago, and just be thankful that you started 10. So and that's a way to, I thought that was interesting. So you said something that really struck me. So you had this confidence issue. So, okay, I'm with you. I tell my story is I think it was 142 or 149 of 142 of 149 in my class. Okay. I was at the bottom of the bottom. So I had this incredible complex of confidence and thinking that, because I really wasn't good at school. My mom used to always say, if you would just apply yourself, your teacher, if you just apply yourself, you're such a smart young man. So what pushed you? Because that was a thing that bothered me. I was probably, I may have been even, I'm 60 now. I may have been in my early 40s because I never went to college. So people always like, they see this young guy, he owns a business, he's running these big, like, where'd you go to college? I'm like, well, and I'd always I'd put my head down and I'd be like, well, I never really went to college. There you grew up in Austin. Oh, did you go to UT? And that bothered me forever. And so tell me about this confidence thing, because people take into effect, like they see someone like you, good looking guy, carries himself, dresses well. You're like, oh, he must be so confident. But yet people don't realize underneath that beautiful blue sweater, there's this, you struggle with that. Like, so tell me about that and how that evolved from a 18-year-old high school flunky. And I don't mean that in any disrespect, because I was right there with you, to this confident, I know you still struggle with it probably, to where you are today. Tell me how you figured that out. What was it? Was there a moment? Just tell me about all of that.
Yeah.
Because that's a big deal for people.
That sort of gauntlet that I went through definitely put a chip on my shoulder. And it made me want to prove myself more. And it continues to drive me, right? And so, I think there's a few things there. This is a little bit different. This is what I carry with me. I've got a family relation. The guy is very successful in the airline industry. He's an executive. He meets with senators. He meets with all kinds of important people, right? And we're at a family thing maybe 5 years ago, and this is when my business is starting to ramp up. And I said to him, "What's it like? What's it like to go into those meetings, with those very important people? And how do you feel like you belong there?" And he goes, "Chris, the more and more I succeed, the more and more I realize there are idiots at every level."
Yeah, it's true.
And so and I didn't take that, and I didn't take that to mean, that I'm smarter than the rest of the room. I took that as, whatever room you're going into, if everybody in that room is generally pushing themselves beyond what they're comfortable and trying to do better in these high level meetings and situations, right? So do I belong in the room? I don't know, but probably nobody belongs in that room. That's the way I look at it, right? We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to do better. We're all pushing the envelope. And so, I just, when I go into those meetings, that nobody belongs in this room, I definitely belong in this room.
Well, that's better than seeing everybody naked.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, it's like, but it's just funny to hear you say that, because, you and I relate on such a unique level because we're in the same industry. And it is so true that, because you see these people and you're like, oh, that guy's got it all figured out. And at the end of the day, he's just like me and you. And that's so important when hearing that, for this podcast, for people to understand that, look at Chris, he's got this great business, it could be screwed tomorrow like I do. My business is great right now. Could be broke next month. But, you just have this incredible understanding that, hey, we're just all working our butts off and it's all hard. Everybody my dad used to say, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time, son.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's, I know you always, this weird thing that happens in the entrepreneurial journey where I was talking with a guy, Rhodes Scholar, graduated from West Point, went degree from Oxford the other day. And what's the hardest part about what you do? And he says, well, it's this in the entrepreneurial journey, you almost have to have this suspended reality where, you can operate within this sphere of there's all these things that you have to do and all these balls you have to keep in the air, and you've got to be able to step away from that and not let all of that collapse in on you and be overwhelmed by all the things. You've got to be able to not be crushed by all those pressures around you, right? So can you live in that suspended reality? And from time to time, I find myself, self-doubt creeps in, and you start looking at your lists of things to do and all this stuff. Man, one day at a time, right? Just keep the balls in the air, do it well, have confidence. And I don't have confidence in myself that I'm never going to screw up, but I do have confidence that when I do screw up, I'm going to work my butt off to make it right and to do what I need to. There's a story that's out there. I did my first 3A buildings. This is for your listeners. 3A building is a fire rated exterior wall on an apartment building. And I missed a spec. I needed some Doug fir larch #1 fire treated. And I needed it like in 24 hours. And I'm in Wisconsin. The closest stuff was Denver, Colorado. And so it's a terrible situation to be in.
Just for so our listeners understand, what he's describing is monumental, because just the grade alone, and he throws fur in there, that's a big deal. It's a
huge problem, and it's a contract worth millions of dollars. I mean,
and it's fire treated.
Yes, and it's fire treated. It's like
gun to the head.
Yeah. So I find out at 1:00 in the afternoon. I light up the phones, and at 1:45, 45 minutes later, I'm hooking up a trailer and I'm driving my diesel to Denver, Colorado. So drove overnight, picked up my material, all weather woods, slept a little bit, and I got it all back. Right. So I screwed up big time, but absolutely, I worked my butt off to make sure it got made right.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's what people don't realize. That's the stuff that guys like you do. And, it's like people are like, why do you do it? I'm like, well, what choice do I have? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When you said that, I was like, so at least it was Denver. I'm glad you didn't say like Boise, Idaho or something.
It was Denver, or I found some in Sacramento on the ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Denver was a much better choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been brutal. So you were talking earlier about, so you started doing this, you're young. So give me some great, or at least one really good, like management story where you just really sucked at managing people, or, I had a guy throw a coffee cup at me one time in the middle of a truss plant, things like that.
Yeah. I was, when I was a frame, I'm still a framer, but when I was out there every day, I was a yeller. I would yell and I would throw my hammer. I wouldn't throw it at anybody, but I definitely threw my hammer.
So you were a screamer?
Yeah.
I didn't. Boy, I would have never thought that. Okay, cool.
I know. All right. I get that a lot.
Really? Yeah. Well, there's a reason you seem so chill.
I've come full circle. So when you're a framer, especially when you're a stick framer, because that crane is expensive, $200 an hour, and usually for most framers, that's coming directly out of your pocket, right? So
part of your contract
goes wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Something goes wrong on truss day. That's a big problem. So we were building this large building in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and there was a problem. There was a major problem. We had this weird apex girder, and nothing was lining up. And And I've got like 7 guys all up in the trusses, and they're all telling me what I ought to be doing. And so I started yelling. And I started yelling, and I yelled some obscenities, and I got everyone to be quiet. Um, and then at that point, I had control, and I could instruct everybody what they were going to do, what the next steps were. But um, that was my way of getting control of the situation, yelling and managing. Um, Obviously, I've learned a lot since then. Everybody on the 𝗕cie𝗂𝘁 side is very surprised to hear that I was a crew leader who yelled a lot. But
well, I confirmed that again today. I was like, really? I never thought you'd be a yeller. You seem so docile.
I learned that it, myself included, people just generally want a direction. If they want to lead or be led, and just clear instruction is a great way to go. And especially in construction, if you can clearly communicate the plan, that's great. You're gonna rise above everyone else. So
that's cool. So, so something I learned, I think, so like I said, I'm 60. So I think I was like 36, and, I was struggled trying to learn stuff. I always learn. Did you spend a lot of time, or do you now spend a lot of time reading? Because, our generation now, obviously I'm a lot older, but we have information. Like, you don't need a degree. I mean, obviously you do to be a lawyer, but I mean, there's so much information available now. Do you find yourself studying and learning? Because you can become highly educated now just because of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few ways that I try to learn, because obviously I'm this framer who's now a business owner and running I'm the president of a company, real president responsibilities. And so I spend a lot of time reading. Um, I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. I spend a lot of time asking ChatGPT what things are.
You use that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If I need to figure something out, or I need some cliff notes on a complex whatever, I put it in there. I was thinking about applying to be a speaker for the International Builder Show again this next year. I was a speaker last year. So I gave ChatGPT the PDF, 5 pages of what you need to do to apply. And I'm on Google. So I said, do a Google search on Tatge and write a presentation, write a pitch for Tatge doing a presentation. And sure enough, spit the whole thing out for me. Amazing, right?
So how long did that take for it to spit that out?
I mean, seconds.
Seconds?
Seconds. I mean, it read the 5-page PDF on how to apply, and did a Google search on me, read all the stuff that I've got out there on the internet, and wrote it for me, and it was seconds.
Did you sound good?
Yeah, it sounded good, and I was suspicious. So I said, "Does this follow the outline? Does this?" And it regurgitated what I needed to do according to the NAHB outline, and said, "Yeah, absolutely, it does." So that was interesting.
All right, so we're going to jump ahead, because I know you. So you're learning. You want to be a public speaker. You've done some stuff. So plug yourself a little bit here. Give yourself an opportunity. Sure. So tell me about. So are you speaking about framing? Are you talking about business? You talking about philosophy? I mean, what are you really talking about? All the above?
I think when George Hull started the National Framers Council, his goal was to professionalize the framing industry. And a lot of framers are guys like me who didn't do well in traditional education settings, got out on their own, and got their pickup truck, skill saw, and started their own business. And they're very proud that they've built that for themselves. Same as me. But we're generally rougher guys, and we generally feel like every framer thinks they're God's gift to framing, and we act that way. That's just the way our industry is. That kind of a attitude is good. It can be good, but it doesn't lend itself well to early collaboration. it doesn't lend itself well to having a seat at the table or having a voice in the broader construction industry. To be a good framer, you have to know a little of everything about every trade that touches your work, right? I need to know generally how HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roofing, drywall, and trim, all those trades work to be a good framer. And so why aren't we being engaged more? And I think there's just generally a lack of professionalism in our industry. But there are guys out there. There's guys like me. There's guys like Kenny, George. So I do a lot of time. I spend a lot of time on podcasts, public speaking, posting on LinkedIn, and I like the accolades. I like getting recognized, but the goal is bring more professionalism to our industry, hold up what I've done as an example to other framers are out there who also have the blinders on, who don't see what they could be, what they could grow into. And because I've been willing to be flexible, to learn how to use spreadsheets and email and QuickBooks, because I've been willing to learn all those things, look what I've made for myself. I've built a great company. And so for me, a big part of it's giving back to the industry, raising our industry, and creating more opportunities for framers. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you'll, I mean, just even hearing that story, I mean, you'll inspire other entrepreneurs. I mean, there's so many industries, especially in the construction side, that tend to be rough. Most of us, are not by world standards educated. We learn, you learn how to read financials and balance sheets because you don't have a choice. You find out they're really not that hard. There's plus and minuses, pretty simple. But when the first time you're in a bank, they talk, well, I need to see your financials and balance sheet. You're like, oh my God, what is it? You're thinking Wall Street and some public company. Well, actually QuickBooks pretty much generates it for you. And, and then you come to find out bankers really don't know that much because you have to explain to them what a financials and balance sheets are. Right. I mean, you really do.
There are idiots in every room.
Exactly. That's right. There's idiots in every room. Yeah. I used to be petrified of bankers. I mean, God, until after the financial crisis, I mean, I would walk into a bank and I'd be like, please, can I borrow some money from you? And you kind of find out later, oh, they make money by loaning you money.
Yeah. Some aligned interests here.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So are you doing all of your public speaking through, it's 𝗕cie Materials?
Yeah.
Yep. Is that what you're doing all that
Materials.
Through? Okay. All right.
That's the material supply side of my company. But yeah, that's what I'm moving forward with and promoting.
Are you venturing outside of Wisconsin now with your framing?
No, we're still kind of scooping up market share here, and we're very comfortable with that. I think there's more opportunities a little bit outside my market, but we haven't gotten out of Wisconsin. I don't dislike the idea of sort of growing and a little bit moving around. It's a different business that I still have to learn more about, and I think there are some national framers out there who do it, and there's some guys who do it successfully. But again, it's sort of, I've got a certain standard. I deliver a 4-story building in 8 weeks. That's it. And that's my pitch, right?
Which is crazy, by the way.
It is.
And it's all out of wood?
It's all out of wood.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the footprint. I deliver it in 8 weeks, right?
Wow.
So can I keep that standard up if I go outside of my market? And if the answer is no, then we don't do it. The service side is the most important thing. So,
yeah, people still, it's funny now, we don't talk about customer service, and yet at the end of the day, it's still such a customer service and relationships is still critical.
Yeah.
And you hear people talk, it's price. Man, it's priced to a point, but I mean, you obviously, you have to be competitive, right, Chris? I mean, you can't be 20%, maybe at 5%, maybe at 10, maybe you only get 2%, but you can't be 20% higher, and it is important. So you really do drive customer service and response. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It's at the core of what we do. I always say in construction, there's two kinds of contractors. There's guys who do what they say they're going to do. And then there's guys who say they can do things, create chaos, and know how to profit out of that chaos. So I like being the guy who does what he says he's going to do.
Yeah, I don't. There's something about the chaos. It's at some point it just gets too much. Like
it is. It's exhausting.
Yeah. This stuff is already stressful enough. Why add to it?
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about this. I haven't asked anybody, but I was talking to a guy the other day. So you build this business. So tell me something that has intrigued me when I hear y'all talk about this stuff in these meetings. Tell me about contracts and how you've learned to read contracts, because contracts can crush you.
Yeah, they can.
So how did you learn that? And did you make a big mistake, or did you just say you learned from George Hull or Kenny or somebody like that?
Yeah, few things. At first, it's sort of like you said, when you walk into the bank meeting with the bankers, oh, please, can I, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of getting past this idea that a contract that I received from a general contractor is this ironclad, non-negotiable thing. They care about the price, and they care about getting me on site. And is there other value that I can find? I used to have this mindset that I couldn't move that contract. Getting beyond that and understanding that I can negotiate terms in a contract was super helpful. Understanding what an indemnification clause is. So I learned a lot by finding aligned interests. So I'd get a new contract, I'd send it to my insurance agent, say, read this, give me feedback. Because he's on the hook for whatever I sign as well.
So that's great information for an entrepreneur. I mean, I never think about that. Send it to your insurance agent.
Yeah.
They have law
Let me know
departments.
what you think about what I'm thinking about signing, right? There's this interesting sort of exercise you can do in the negotiations when you study negotiations, that there are things that somebody on the other table doesn't value as much as I maybe value that, right? Like a cash flow is really important in what I do. I need money flowing in as fast as it comes out. So can I get a 2-week payment terms? And in exchange, I'm willing to bump up my retainage a little bit. Those kind of things, and understanding that the contract is a fluid document, and that there's things in there or things can be inserted that are valuable to you that are very easy yes for a general contractor. That stuff exists, and it's not hard, and it's not uncommon for guys to mark up contracts and send them back, and it's not an insult to the general contractor you're dealing with. These people, a general contractor has to only be good at one thing, and that's contracting, right? Mm-hmm. To be able, so that's all in their wheelhouse. Mark it up, send it back. Don't be aggressive. Say, hey, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? I put this language in there. It's not an adversarial thing. So
yeah, and I know for a fact, even today, I've gotten now to where even like some of the bank stuff, like same thing, they send these long documents. Well, now if you can actually push back. Now they're a little more, they'll be like, oh, well, the federal, FDIC rules. Yeah. But that's a great point, because contracts are intimidating as crap. And you think that when they send that to you, all that little fine print on the back and the front is ironclad no. And actually it is. And I think that's good for entrepreneurs to know, because even smaller contracts, you can push things out. Like the freaking indemnity, if you can get somebody to sign that, that's a home run for the other guy.
Yeah.
If anybody ever reads that, which most of us have not, I mean, I've read them now. It's a big deal. Like they can run you over in the entrance, and you're like, yeah, sorry.
Firstborn child
Yeah.
up for grabs, man.
That's right. Literally. Yeah. But I think that's a great thing for entrepreneurs to understand, that those contracts are written, but they can be negotiated.
Yeah.
And things like terms of cash, like that's one of my biggest things is I try to push people, like, I need to get paid fast. If I'm going to supply you a product, that product's on the ground, I'm out. I've already out lumber, labor, material, and profit. And people, it's shocking how many times guys will pay you quicker just to get the product.
Absolutely. It's just clicking the right buttons a little bit earlier on their side. That's all.
That's it. Yeah. Now, God knows now you don't even get checks anymore most of the time, probably. Yeah. It's just mind blowing. Well, so as we've gone through this great journey, so tell me, so as I end this with everybody is, there's this great thing. Like I listened to this great story of yours, California kid to the Wisconsin kid and all this stuff that happened in between. So were you born or were you made?
I knew you were going to ask, and there's things about the way I am that I think are just in me. I like to work. I like to work hard. I like to be tired at the end of the day. I think those kinds of things are born into a person. The made part of it for me is I'm ambitious, and I want to accomplish a lot. I'm not good at conflict. I don't normally avoid conflict, right? Which when you're growing a business, that's not a great thing, right? So how have I succeeded in spite of that? For example, I find ways to align value with my vendors. So when I'm learning lumber, I've got a lumber supplier who is very interested in me succeeding, right? And so if I find ways to align interests, I can build a team, and I'm not pushing, I'm not yelling. We're just building a team and we're moving forward, right? And so I find a way to work around the fact that I don't like yelling at people and being a jerk to people, at least anymore. So I think the ambition needs to be there, and there's successful people that are all kinds of different types of people. I'm super high level, big vision, kind of guy. My business partner, Eli, is a very nuts and bolts, get it done kind of guy, much more technical, much more detail oriented than me. Both found a way to succeed. Both found a way to fill in the gaps of where we're lacking. And so I think the part you need to be born with is the ambition, that go get up spirit, but figure out who you are and be very honest with yourself about where you're lacking and where you're strong. Amplify the strength and find a way to fill in for where you're lacking, right? That's my sort of philosophy, and that's how I've been able to find success, sort of.
Well, that's a great answer. That's the great thing about that question is there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
I think it varies. The first time I heard people say made, I'm like, really? Cause I'm probably more like you, is like born, or, I've kind of feel like there were certain things I was born with. There were things that happened that kind of pushed me left, but then there's all these things that do happen that create you to be made who you are today. And I think that's, but it is when every person that answers that has the same passion, and for them, that's the answer.
Yeah.
And that's what it really boils down to, Chris, is there is no wrong answer. It's your answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah, I like it. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we'll end it there. Now that they'll keep recording, but y'all can kill it now, guys. So, are you going to Asheville?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty thrilled. There's a guy in South Carolina, hour south of Asheville, that is a world famous tattoo artist.
Really? Are you going to get something done?
And he books out he opens up 2 months at a time, and it's all booked within like 2 hours. And
Really?
I got a time with him the day I'm flying in. So I'm going to get tattooed by that guy. So
So
I'm
how
pretty
long do you have to
thrilled.
stay there to get it all done?
It starts at 11 a.m. And depending on his drawing process and how long it takes, it'll be there 3 hours ish. So yeah,
That every time I mean, all my kids have them. That freaking
yeah.
hurts, man. Like, I don't even like getting one shot of Novocaine, much less like 10,000. Like, I mean, just
It's
there's nothing that I just like the pain. I mean, I think they're cool. Like guys like you can pull it off. I mean,
yeah,
could you imagine a
yeah.
guy like me with tattoos? Be like, what the hell happened to that guy? Like, I saw a guy in Wawa the other day. This was like months, maybe a year ago. He freaking, this was, he had a skull. He had a head like mine, and the guy had a skull tattooed on his head, Chris. And I'm thinking, holy shit, like that hurt.
Yeah,
Could you
that
imagine?
hurts. Yeah, I get the back of my neck and your whole head vibrates.
Oh, I can't imagine. Like,
That's,
yeah, yeah. Good for you. I'm glad you're doing that. I'm
yeah.
gonna just live through you vicariously because there ain't no way in hell that's happening to me.
You know how what happened is I was 31 years old. I'm driving home from work. My son is just born and I have to pay for daycare. I've got no money at all, right? And my wife, who's now my ex-wife, calls me and asks me if she can spend $2,000 on a purse. And I was so pissed. And I hung up the phone and I thought, I don't spend any money on myself, and this woman's calling me trying to buy a $2,000 purse. I'm going to start getting the tattoos I've always wanted. And so 32 years old, I started getting all my sleeves. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
man, you guys spend thousands of dollars on those things.
I
I
said,
like
yeah, so a few
it's.
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's just
But
mind blowing.
the earlier you get them, the more value you get. So
Yeah, but they're so, I mean, it's amazing. So, as a kid from the, growing up in the 60s, the only guys that had tattoos were either war heroes or,
yep.
The Hell's Angels. I grew up in Texas, so
Bikers,
they were
yeah,
criminals, right? Now these,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
were all like inks. You always had the guy with the naked girl thing right here. It was just like, you're like, really? Like, how was that? Like, in my Cheryl's grandfather had that. So this won't be on the tape. So he has this thing, and this thing's like, she must have been skinny when he was like 20 in the military, but she's like fat, and her boobs are actually sagging now too, by the way, just
Sure.
like they in real life. And so but now these things that they're so pretty. Like there was a guy,
Yeah.
we were standing in line yesterday waiting to get on a plane in Charlotte, and this guy, young strapping guy, was just jacked, but he was wearing normal, but on the back of his arm right here, he had this color. And it was I was looking, I'm like, oh my God, it was like the reds and the yellows and the blues are like, they're paintings.
Oh yeah.
Used to that was not the case. And now this stuff, you're just like, I mean, I was like literally staring at this guy's arms and I'm like, man, it was beautiful. Like I was like, wow. Yeah. I mean, yours are too. I mean, but the colors, I mean, 40 years ago, that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Not with the clarity that you guys can get now.
Right. No, I agree. A lot of good changes come to the tattooing world as far as the quality of products and the workmanship and all of it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great hobby. So
Great. Oh, so it's a freaking hobby?
it is.
Can
I've been
you don't like
tattooed
fishing
all
or
over the
anything?
world now.
You don't like to fish?
What's that? I do. I like to
Okay,
fish.
because that's a hobby, by the way. I've never heard anybody like, oh, I get tattoos. It's a hobby. Like, what the hell does that mean? Fly fishing. Look, this is a hobby. That's funny. Well, Chris, take care. I'll look forward to, I guess I'll see you in probably about less than a month, probably, actually.
Yeah,
Something
it's coming up. It's 3 weeks. Yeah.
You got any new speeches coming up? And you got any new speaking engagements coming anytime soon?
We're doing a thing for the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber of Commerce where I'm going and talking about sort of the success I found in the trades, and it's trying to get more veterans involved in the trades and kind of hook guys up with jobs. And so I'm speaking for that beginning of May. I don't know if I got too much else up on the docket.
So part of my whole process too is ultimately what I want to do is do, public speaking. So,
Yeah.
have you had any bad ones yet?
Uh,
I was talking to a guy today and he
no,
was
I
like,
can't
yeah,
say that I have.
yeah, this one guy, he's done some pretty big ones. And he's like, yeah, you walk out and you're like, man, that sucked. I'm like, how's that feeling? He goes,
Yeah.
not very good.
At the International Builder Show this year, I did 3 sessions. One was a MyTech hosted panel, and panels are always
Yep.
easy.
Yeah, those are easy.
Yeah. And then I gave another presentation for the building performance zone about efficiencies of panelized. It's kind of pushing this message that we're a practical offsite solution. Before that, in the Building Systems Council Lounge, I gave a Cliff Notes version of that presentation. And that came off really, really well because the audience is super educated. They understand components, all the different parts and pieces, and ask all the right questions. But when I went into the building performance zone, which was general public, it's such a broad spectrum of audience, and so it's really hard to tailor your message to that when you're talking about components.
Yeah, and it's hard to gauge because a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah. So you kind of go into it, you give it your best, and you kind of walk away, and you're like, I'm sure it gave a good impression to the people that I don't know were at that right level for what I was speaking to. So
that's awesome. Well, good. We'll look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks,
and
Larry.
like I said, all this stuff will be edited, sent to you. Nothing will go out. We'll do the bio pre, so you'll see all that come through. So when it comes through, you'll see it all. And if there's anything you want to change or anything, Chris, just let us know and we'll make it happen. Okay.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Take care. See you soon. All right. Bye-bye now.